Sandy Bland. One good update, we're going to have outside prosecutors looking in on this. There's going to be a commission, and Waller County recognizes that people are calling out for it, and now they're saying, yes, we're going to bring in outsiders, and we welcome a federal investigation. I think the answer as to whether the cop instigated a situation that didn't need to get instigated with Sandy Bland is very obvious. We showed all the videotapes for you guys. He's the one escalating throughout. He's the one who says, I'm going to light you up. And he gets mad at her because she won't put out her cigarette, which she's got every right to smoke in her own car. And she didn't have to be in jail. Certainly for those 3 days. Those are all obvious things. Whether she committed suicide or was killed inside jail is not obvious. And I've said this from day one. So now there are some small piece of new evidence in that regard. They talked to Alexandria Pyle. She was an inmate in the next cell to Sandy Bland. And she said she was crying, and I could barely understand her. I was like, it's okay, don't cry. It can't rain all the time. It'll be all right. Obviously referring to Sandy Bland's state of mind. She thinks apparently she was depressed to some degree. Now, if I'd been put in prison for no reason at all and had to stay there for 3 days, I might get a little depressed myself. So none of this is overwhelming in terms of evidence, but I'm giving you all the background so you know. Pyle said that Bland was eager to get out of jail as soon as her bond was set Saturday. Now that could go either way. If you're eager to get out of jail, you might not want to commit suicide. And if she thought that was going to happen relatively soon, another reason why suicide doesn't seem quite as logical. Now, again, she might not have been in an illogical state of mind. Pyle continues explaining what Bland said to her in jail. She said he's not answering, referring to somebody she had asked to get her out of jail. It's going straight to voicemail. I don't know why. He said he's going to be here in an hour, and it's days later. So, again, that puts you in a frame of mind where she's quite despondent. The thing that drives me crazy throughout all of this is she should have never been in that state because she shouldn't have been in that prison for 3 days. For what? Doing everything that she had a right to do. The guy wrote her up for a ticket for not doing a turn signal as he came up behind her and scared her, and she's just shifting lanes to get out of his way. Okay, fine, you wrote her up for a ticket. Let's all move along. No, you got to drag her out of the car. You got to bring her to prison for resisting arrest. What was she resisting in the first place? Oh, shoot. That's right. There was no real reason to arrest her in the first place. And he changes his story. The cop does in the middle and goes, I didn't mean resisting arrest, because obviously you can't back that up. I meant she kicked me. Oh, I'm sure she did. So now we go to the autopsy. The autopsy notes a white trash bag was used as a ligature tied into a slip knot that forms a circle at one end and a knotted area at the opposite end. Now, that doesn't give you much guidance, because yes, she might have been able to do that, or someone else did that. So that really doesn't cut either way. Whether she was killed ahead of time and then hung, well, that would be enormously important and relevant, but the coroner says that's not the case and that it was a suicide. Now, there's an independent investigation that's going to happen to see if the coroner is right. One more thing from the autopsy that could be relevant. Bland also had 25 to 30 cut marks on her left forearm. So, did somebody else do that? Obviously, some believe that she did that, hence going to her state of mind as to why she might have committed suicide, if that is the case. Now, obviously, a lot of people don't believe that at all, including her mom, who spoke out at her funeral that happened this weekend. And she said, and this is Geneva Reed Veal, I'm the mama, and I'm telling you that my baby did not take herself out. The fact is, I'm the mama, and I still don't know what happened. You think you're mad, I'm mad too. Well, if I was the mother in this case, I would be incredibly mad. So, again, let's just remember here, whether it is a suicide or not, and we don't know, and they should definitely further investigate it. She didn't have to be in that jail cell in the first place. But some disagree. This is where Fox News comes into play. This is unbelievable. Elizabeth Hasselbeck is going to bring in an expert. Well, look, it's so unbelievable. I want you to see it for yourself. Watch this.
It's tense to watch. Where would you say he went over the line, if at all? it appears, obviously, he took this too personal. When she didn't put out the cigarette, now all of a sudden you're taking her out of court. These cameras that the officers are wearing, you live and die by what you say with this. You know, it appears, looking at this, because she didn't put out the cigarette, next thing he knows, he's asking the person to step out of the vehicle. You can't take it personal. It's a job.
But what if? I mean, there are times I'm sure someone has, in the history of this land, used a cigarette against a police officer, maybe chucked it at him, pushed it at him.
Absolutely.
If he indeed felt as though that could be a potential threat, was that the wise thing to do on his part?
I think because you know, and you have to know you're being recorded, you have to say, listen, I need you to step out to sign this warning. I wouldn't want somebody stepping out with a cigarette. I mean, I've had a cigarette try to be, I've had somebody try to put a cigarette out on me. It happens. I guarantee you speak to many cops out there, but the way you say it, unfortunately, you're locked into because now it's being recorded. Unfortunately, these officers have to remember that.
All right, so this former NYPD officer, John Rafferty, is not helping matters, if you ask me. He says, remember, you're being recorded. I mean, if you weren't being recorded, then you kick the crap out of her, arrest her, make up some charges like we always do. But remember, he said, you live and die by this. She actually literally died. She literally died. Don't say the cop lives and dies by it because, oh my God, you can get in trouble for the ass kickings we used to do on a regular basis before we were being recorded. Okay, so I got enough problems with Rafferty. But he, of the two, is actually the reasonable one. Elizabeth Hasselbeck talking about, could the cigarette have been a weapon? When it comes to black people, what isn't a weapon? There was once a guy shot fairly recently, we did it on the show. He was not only unarmed, but naked. What was his weapon? There was Tamir Rice with a toy gun. There was a guy at the Walmart with a toy gun. They're all weapons. Everything's a weapon. Unarmed, reach for the waistband. Another guy, now this guy wasn't black, he was Latino. Shows his hat, has got his arms up. The hat could have been a weapon. No, a cigarette could have been a weapon. Have you no decency at all? And the reality is, Elizabeth Hasselbeck and Fox News answer that every time with absolutely not, no decency. Doesn't care that Sandy Bland died in that jail cell. They don't care about that at all. The question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? How do we blame the black person in this case? As Fox News 101. Well, maybe her cigarette could have been a weapon. I don't know how they live with themselves, man. Despicable. Don't you stop for a second and think like, well, that's a human being. I mean, I know you don't care much for minorities, right? Okay, it's a black human being, but it's still a human being. Don't you think like, oh God, that's a shame what happened. That's a shame what happened. Even if you think it's a suicide. Like, isn't that a tragedy? No, for Elizabeth Hasselbeck, it's not a tragedy. The tragedy is some cop got caught on tape. And we got to figure out how to make sure we can excuse that so that he doesn't live and die by that decision.